The lawsuit between Nopixel owner Koil and That One video game over the ownership of DW contributions to the Nopixel server has come to an end. I saw screenshots of the court order on Reddit along with Koil's victory post on Twitter. Some Redditor pointed out that they knew it was over when Tove did not respond to the motion for summary judgment. Another person called the lawsuit shady, noting that people cannot work 2 jobs here on a visa. Lastly, questioned how DW is legally staying in the United States if he's not streaming. The funniest part was someone noting that DW and his lawyer went MIA after DW's visa application was shared with Koil. In terms of X, someone knew it was a lawsuit was legalized theft when they saw Tove was involved because of the alleged fraud with the completionist in which Tove's brother had a part in. A family that scams together stays together. After a year of litigation, Tove finally waved the white flag and the company may end up going bankrupt based on Koil's lawyer's next filing, and DW may end up getting deported. Tove has no one to blame but COO Jacques Koil and DW for its future losses in their get-rich-quick scheme to sue Koil. The big question is, how did Koil win? Koil won by and large thanks to their 30-year copyright attorney Larry Zerner, who led his legal team to victory.
Hello and welcome to Ask an Entertainment Lawyer. I'm Larry Zerner, an entertainment attorney for the past 27 years, and I'm here to answer your questions.
Was a settlement option ever on the table offered from either side?
No.
Wow. They really didn't offer like a settlement early on? Like,
you know, they were like they thought they were going to get like half of the money from Nopixel. It was like, what are you talking about? Like, we're not giving you any money.
Oh my goodness. This case has gone on for far too long, and what you're going to notice is DW may not be no different from a debt trying to use a legal loophole to steal ownership from Koil. What you're going to find out, though, is this case was actually won on September 9th after Tove's summary for adjudication was dismissed at the hearing. Do you think your lucky Crystal Lake Jason Sox played a key role in it getting denied?
I think it was going to happen anyway, but it didn't hurt that I was wearing my lucky Friday 13th sock. But here's the thing with this case. So our Judge Wilson, is a very respected judge. He's in his 80s, not a gamer. Let's just put it that way. I don't think he'd ever heard of Grand Theft Auto. I'm pretty sure there was a lot of just sort of you have to educate the judge in a way that other judges may be more familiar. If you're a younger judge, play video games, may be more familiar with what's going on. So that was the first challenge. But in terms of their motion, not our motion, but their motion was there is this agreement between Tove and Koil that for DW services, and we're like, there isn't. And for motion for summary judgment, it's not a question of proof. As long as there's any question of fact, the judge has to deny the motion. So we're at the hearing. Tove's lawyer talked a little bit, and then he was trying to get a hold of it, and then he had me talk, and I sort of I was like, no, there's no agreement. These people have never spoken ever. They've admitted they've never spoken ever. And the judge just went, can't you file a motion for summary judgment? I said, absolutely. He said, okay. And then he's like, okay, why did you do that? So I was like, all right, well, that's what I said, we're ready to go. So then plaintiff's lawyer said, well, wait, can I say anything? And the judge said, nope, I don't need to hear from you.
Shut up, bitch!
After the judge told Larry to file his motion, he would waste no time. By September 23rd, he filed a final motion for the case to be dismissed. He wanted the courts to conclude that Koil was granted a license by DW for his work when he signed on agreeing to the TOS. Also, Koil never entered into a contract with Tove. And lastly, there was no joint ownership of the copyrighted material. He introduced a motion to point out that Tove never communicated with Koil and never agreed to be joint authors. This was supported by the deposition of Jacques Koil. In Jacques' deposition, he admits that Tove never communicated with Koil. Jacques insinuates he had indirectly, but that was DW talking to Koil and then DW talking to Jacques. In other words, Jacques never spoken to Koil directly, which begs the question, how could Koil enter into any legal agreements with Tove? Larry would also pressure Jacques during his deposition about having any written agreements with Koil which Jock admitted that there was none outside of the Discord messages that DW received from Koil stipulating the terms of their agreement. The most laughable part is during Jock's deposition, he was adamant that Tove loaned out DW to work for Koil. What was the most outlandish thing you thought Tove did? Was it the joint author or their expert witness saying like Tracy's code made up 40% of the current code, that they were not running a pay for stay visa operation? What was the most outlandish thing that you saw them like, come on guys?
Well, that was the thing. I mean, the fact that they were saying there was an agreement between Tove and Nopixel when they had never spoken. Like there were no one had ever spoken to them. DW had been working for Nopixel for a year before they got along. And yes, then they filed this thing with the immigration where they went, he's going to work for us. He's working like they, you know, the Jock, the head of Tove files a declaration saying, I'm hiring him to work for us 100% of the time. And then we're like, I took his deposition and I said, you said you're hiring him to work for them. He's like, yes, but I'm loaning him out to you. I'm like, huh? What's talking about loaning him out? You never talked for like, we don't need him. He works for us. We don't need him loaned to us.
Oh, look.
So stupid. It was all so stupid. Like they filed the whole case. They thought that this would get some kind of quick settlement or something. I don't know what they were thinking. They didn't think it would get this far, and then they just got trapped. And then, we were like, no, we're not going to pay you. You're not getting anything. We're just going to keep going. And Mitch, Koil, he's like, let's keep going. And, we did. And so we weren't worried that we would prevail in the end.
Kudos to Koil making an example out of Tove, pushing forward, but we're not finished yet. Koil lawyer points out DW and Tove do own the copyright. However, Koil does not care about ownership of the copyright because he has the irrevocable unlimited license to use them, meaning the courts do not need to determine the rights of anyone in terms of copyright. He reiterated that there is no contract for DW to be loaned out, as well as DW only was entitled to 50% of the 4 of the 170 servers. But now Larry had to nail DW on agreeing to Nopixel's TOS. Proof of DW agreeing to TOS was further proof that even without a contract with Koil, the TOS granted Koil a license to DW's work. DW would try to say he didn't recall agreeing to the TOS, but just because he doesn't recall agreeing doesn't mean he didn't agree. This would solidify Koil's fact that he agreed as being undisputed. Just these facts alone begs the question why a lawyer would even take this case. Well, I knew why they took it, because they paid the retainer and they said, hey, we're going to pay this retainer more than likely, and at the end there's going to be this huge settlement. And lawyers out there sadly can sometimes do their clients a disservice, taking cases they know they can't win, but the client can easily afford to pay for.
He got passed. We filed that motion to dismiss, which you did a video on early on. I thought we should have won at that stage and the case would have been over. And it wasn't. So, there's the only credit he gets. He got it past that stage. Although, what did he get his client? It got his client a whole bunch of attorney's fees, and at the end, the same result. So I don't know that. Okay. You're doing your client. You're not doing your client any favor if you're just going to charge them, a whole bunch more money to get the same result.
So as long as Tove was paying their legal fees, they had a lawyer raking them over the coals in the hope of getting a settlement just to lose, and they're going to lose big. The motion continues to attack Tove experts, saying that this DW possibly could have went through some backdoor when he started playing the game, but also their code expert, he tested the current code as opposed to the 2020 code when DW signed up, and it was his opinion in the court of law is not necessarily a fact. If he would have tested the 2020 code and he would have saw that, hey, there is a backdoor where DW could have said, hey, yes, I based on the 2020 code, the backdoor, DW easily could have went through it and without agreeing to the TOS. Also, their expert was trying to say that DW's code made up 40% of just the payment portion of the code, when in totality, Koil's lawyer pointed out that it only made up less than 1% of the total code on the Nopixel server. Now Larry had DW in the crosshairs. As always, Larry gave credit to DW or Tove for owning the copyright code provided, even though as moronic as it was saying that DW owned the code before signing up with Tove, and then once he took a sponsorship from Tove, instantly Tove owned the code, whatever that is. But like I said, Koil does not care about the copyright because he has a license via the TOS, but Tove then tried to argue that they were joint authors of the Nopixel server. However, all decisions regarding code went through Koil. No one had more say than Koil on what gets approved or what gets not improved. In other words, DW literally had no say on what code went through on Nopixel. Lastly, it was rumored that DW set up the whole payment for paid priority, in which Koil disputes, saying that he paid third-party company T-Bex, who built the payment program.
We think the judge would have said, yeah, he agreed in the terms of service. It's not a joint work. That's a key point under copyright law. Is this a joint work? But the court's supposed to look at, decide whether it's a joint work. Is there any documents that show an intent, like a contract that says we intend this to be a joint work? Well, here we have a contract that the terms of service, which say we don't intend this to be a joint work. We intend this to be, you own the copyright, DW, we can use it. That's not a joint work. That's just a license. We have a license to use it, and we're using it.
Okay.
You can't. So not a joint work, and therefore you're not entitled to half of the profit. Even if they had been like it was a joint work, the case law is not you get half. I mean, there's cases out there that like you get your contribution, the value of your contribution, which our expert, which they agreed was like less than 1/2 of 1% of the total code. I mean, they tried to say, well, yes, but we wrote 20% or 40% of this part of the code. Now, okay, well, great, but that's like the billing software. It's like, they're like, we did the billing, so therefore we get all the money. It's like, that's not how it works.
It would appear from the filing that Toad literally threw everything in the kitchen sink at Koil and his legal team, hoping something would stick. But this case literally has fallen apart before our eyes over the last year, and Larry was not finished. He needed to seal the deal to secure the win. This would likely bankrupt Tove in the way it's going to play out, get them fined. Jock could potentially be facing some jail time, and DW will likely get deported. This is because DW's visa in Tove's employment contract.
That's not why you get one of these H-1B visas. The H-1B visas are, I need someone for their expertise. I can't find an American who can do that. Well, you can find lots of Americans who can stream on Twitch and make money. That's not a thing. So
okay,
that's a truthful statement.
As I pointed out before, DW was given a salary and Tove would take 30% of all sponsorships, but nowhere in the employment contract does it mention DW being loaned out. Also, per Jock's deposition, he's not in the loan out business, but it was all the employment contract that stated that Tove owned all of DW's work that allowed Tove to sue Koil. Combine that with the employment contract with Tove and DW that they agreed to, but Koil knew nothing about it. DW would eventually admit that he never told Koil about the loan out program, and all the money that DW made from working for Nopixel, none of it was sent to Tove. Also, it's not legal for two people to agree that one person works for each other and then send the other one to work for another company and say, hey, don't tell them you work for me, that they own everything, because I think the plan may have been all along was to sue Koil. Not even Tove's immigration lawyer knew about this so-called loan out program. Lastly, or as close to last, Larry exposes DW still being under a legal pay to say scheme. DW would have to pay Tove roughly $13,000 a month plus 30% of everything he made after that from streaming. But any money DW made from Nopixel, he did not pay Tove, which Jock and DW admitted, and they said they had to settle the books. Tove is also not in the business of hiring people for third parties, as this loan out thing was literally the first time that they ever done it in the history of Tove, because maybe that employment contract was literally written up on the fly and backdated. This is all speculation, but it's not like notarized, like, hey, on this date this happened, but take it for what it is. Lastly, Koil never agreed to make DW some 50% partner of Nopixel, and that would be literally spitting in the faces of all the other developers working on Pixel who've been in there in the past. And DW stated, and Koil stated from time to time, certain developers would get a bonus in pay if they worked on certain heists or whatever.
I legitimately pay myself like 10 grand a month or some shit like that. 10 grand's a lot, don't get me wrong, but compared to what Nopixel makes, it's nothing. For the last little while, I've been paying some of the devs like 3 to 4 times me, depending on what's happening. Well, not all the devs get paid that much. It depends on what's... So there's been situations, for instance, you know, at end of year, I'm paying some people some extra, or when there's bounties or some shit like that, I do because we want to pump something out quick. I'll pay them extra. You know what I mean?
I can see how, you know, maybe DW was getting paid a little bit more because he was working on something a little bit more critical to the NoPixel server. On the chance that the courts question if DW and Koil really entered into some 50% agreement, it's undisputed that Koil ever entered in any 50% agreement with Tove. But let Larry explain how messed up DW's visa situation is.
You know, we're talking past each other. We knew there was no case. And the other side was like, they thought like they had some shot at getting half of NoPixel's revenue. And it was like, okay, well, it's not going to happen until we get to this motion. We're just never going to get until we got to the deposition. Then it became clear there really was no case. And it took a long time to get to the deposition. If we had done the depositions earlier, maybe we would have filed the motions earlier. Also that discovering, like figuring out that like the immigration thing, they had completely just, that whole thing was just a scam because he's actually charging DW, like Tove is charging TW to be in this country. That's the scandal. And that's not kosher.
Slavery ended, but if you go back to the original video when I first started covering this whole NoPixel lawsuit, Koil did explain how DW was hurting for money because he had to pay Tove every month. And when he started working for NoPixel, it helped out tremendously.
He was pretty much going to he had to move out of the United States of America unless he got a visa or some shit. And the company that he signed to, he had to give them an X amount from his Twitch, which essentially was soaking up quote unquote all his money, even though I was paying him 10 grand a month.
But I digress. Also, in Tove's visa application, there's no mention whatsoever of DW being locked out because from my understanding, you can't get a visa through company A and then go work for company B. Doesn't necessarily work like that. I'm not gonna go into the argument section because Koil won. However, what might bankrupt Tove is that they agreed to a summary judgment. I'll let Larry explain how that works. With that in mind, how was that last communication when they said, hey, we're going to wave the white flag. We agree. We could just drop the case.
I got an email that said, you know, well, first he wanted a dismissal. No, we're not agreeing to just dismissal. We want a judgment. We want the judge to rule that we win. And then now we'll ask the judge for all our attorney fees and costs. And hopefully we'll get those too.
Wait.
Under the copyright. Yeah.
Y'all are going for it?
Of course. When you file a motion for summary judgment, the other side doesn't even file an opposition. The court should take it as an admission that there was no...
In the end, Tove lost big. And once that legal fees come through, I can't wait to see how much it is because remember, this lawsuit went on for over a year. There was over 1,000 pages, numerous communications back and forth. And like I said, Larry had 2 other people working for him. DW comes off like this bitter ex-girlfriend, mad that Koil broke up with them. You know, it's murky why they stopped working together. But in the end, he pulled the whole adept ripcord. Tried to get him on a technicality using Tove. And look, man, these Tove brothers, you know, the Koil brothers have to be 2 of the shadiest people working in this goddamn content creation industry. I really wonder, will DW face any criticism or come out of hiding from his 2-year hiatus because he's been radio silent according to Reddit? Will Penta actually make a statement condemning DW's action now that pretty much all the facts have come to light? As far as Koil, he said it himself, sometimes he can be an asshole, but right is right and wrong is wrong. And what DW and Tove did was morally wrong and legally damn near impossible. But right is right and wrong is right if it's done against someone you don't like. If you have any entertainment questions, please reach out to Larry Zerner. He's on x.com. He's pretty active. He's into horror movies. And I want to thank him again for granting me an interview. And if you want to see the full interview of me and Larry, it will be on my Clips channel. Links to it will be in the description. Peace.